So let's get down to brass tacks. I think people are treating Black Adam really unfairly. I truly do. I
Okay.
I watched Black Adam last night, and I have to say personally that it did everything that they needed it to do, given that it's the beginning of a new age for DC. And why can I hear myself?
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, it's like I hear myself through your headphones, though.
Oh, hold on. It may be that I'm a little too. My volume a little too loud. Try now.
Jet Yeti, what do you mean your ears? What's going on? Is it because I said I liked Black Adam? I
Okay now.
yeah, I'm not hearing myself anymore. But yeah, so I don't know.
I haven't watched it yet. It is on my to-do list, but from what I've seen from the trailers and stuff, it looks pretty good. As far as like DC is
Yeah.
concerned,
Yeah, I mean, I thought you saw it. Didn't you? Didn't you go watch it?
no.
Well, we're going to go into that in a moment. but not before but not beforehand. No,
Okay.
your volume was just really loud in my on my end. Was it like, am I still too loud for you, bro? I'm not trying to blow your ears out. On my end, it says I'm barely reaching where I usually reach. Oh, okay, okay, so it's good now. Um, but yeah, like I truly enjoyed the film. Is it The Godfather? No, it's not. Okay, it's not some magnificent spectacle of what theater and cinema could be. But the action was good, the humor was good. It had way more story than I thought, given the reactions of people that I've seen being like, I thought I was walking into, and quite honestly, I thought I might have been walking into as well without outside input, some really, some really mediocre stuff. But like Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate was absolutely brilliant. Like what couldn't be be expressed from Black Adam himself allowed the viewer, because of just the type of person and the type of pain going on. Dr. Fate was like the heart that was missing and really glued everything together. That movie was very enjoyable. I can't wait to watch it again. Not to mention people who have been like, you know, people were saying that Doctor Fate's powers were very much a ripoff of Doctor Strange. Yeah, I don't get that at all. Like, did his magic or one of his spells have a fractal power to it? Yes, but it wasn't in the same vein at all. Like it wasn't in that Doctor Strange kaleidoscope type of thing that, kind of happens with all of his powers. Learned some Korean while watching it? Huh? No.
Okay. But I mean, as
I,
far as
I
like
know
you
what
know the
he's I
whole.
know what he's hinting at, but no.
I mean, as far as all the copying is concerned, I mean, everything has technically already been done. Everything is a copy or an inspiration from something else, especially like, when it comes to, superhero films and the power sets that people have. It's very much you can't just say that you've copied it. It's
See,
everything's been done.
but I'm saying there was some stuff in there that I was like, ooh. Like, and maybe it's because everyone set my expectations so low that it surprised me. Because I'm not going to tell you that the movie's flawless. It's not. But as far as if you go in to enjoy a movie and to enjoy the fun of a movie, then you really shouldn't have any complaints unless, like, everybody must just be really on Marvel's D. And they're just like, we're not going to give any respect to anything because it was a fun movie. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. So, but yeah, it's technically time.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Well, hello, peoples. You know what? I'm gonna give it 2 more minutes. I'm gonna give it 2
more minutes.
2 more minutes because I want people to come in and get the feel for how we're doing. Shovel and save us. Oh hey, you're in time. But I'm gonna give, like I said, a minute and a half more. Wait for a few more people to jump in. But yeah, like I really enjoyed it, and I hope people really give Black Adam a chance to like really just sit back and take the movie for what it is and enjoy it because what it is pretty awesome.
So would you say people are like doing what they did with Morbius? Like, and I know Morbius in general is like a bad movie, but it's not as bad as the internet made it out to be.
Morbius was nowhere near as bad as people made it out to be. Once again,
they doing the same thing with it.
As far as what Sony puts out for their superhero movies, Morbius was actually very good because you compare any of these things to basically like Venom, which did extremely well. And this is how you know people are unfair. The fact that people will defend Venom 2 and then crap on Morbius is
Venom
hilarious.
1 was bad enough, but Venom 2 just went extra steps further to make it more annoying than what it had to be.
Everything about Venom 2 was done poorly. And more poorly than the first one.
Venom 1,
the first one, I could still say that you would, if you watched it in a certain mood, a certain time of day, you could watch it and sit back and treat it like a popcorn movie and be okay. Of course, you'll have your gripes with what they did with the character and all that stuff, but it's like, okay, it's bad, but I can say that I'm not wasting my time with Venom 1. Like, I'll see it. Venom 2 is literally a waste of time. Everyone's time. Now, I don't care if you liked it. It was a waste of your time. But I think I've given us the extra 2 minutes.
All right,
so, yeah. Here we go, guys.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So yeah, welcome everyone to the Audible Brunch Podcast. I'm your host, Mighty Vicious. And yeah, we're going to be doing something a little different today. I'll answer questions as to why later. But bottom line, welcome. This is going to be the new podcast that we are going to be doing. We're going to be going over movies, the entire spectrum of gaming, television shows, the works. So as we get started on this new venture,
I'm excited because this is like everything that we typically talk about pre-show or we get stuck on mid-podcast show, like with the Maiden Dreams podcast, and we have to really tone it down because obviously the Maiden Dreams podcast is so focused on, well, dreams, because that's what it is, and we have to really hold back on these mid-conversations. So this podcast is really that opportunity for us to really dig into these these topics and not have to restrain ourselves. So it's going to be fun.
And that means it's going to be funny because we're going to have to talk with Jamie off the jump. Because I need to explain to him what's required of him.
Oh my god.
As a co-host
Let me get my
show.
CV ready. Okay. I'm taking notes. Let's go.
Here we go.
Let's go.
One, you're going to have to start watching a few movies here and there.
Yep, I know. Yeah.
You have never watched any of the movies that I've suggested to you. And it's honestly, it hurts
I
our
know.
friendship. It hurts our friendship because every time I see you, I'm like,
I
bruh,
know.
I
I know.
know
Yeah.
he hasn't watched any of these movies. And if I start talking about a movie and with actual, like prep, like me being like, yo, I'm gonna talk about this movie. If you don't know something about that movie and you didn't watch it, bro, we're gonna have a problem. So you're gonna have homework. Are you prepared to have homework?
I am prepared to watch at least one film a week that you suggest. How about
That's
that?
good
I
enough.
can make time for one film a week. I can do that. I think.
Okay. So
right.
next, I understand that it's going to take Jamie some time to adjust to this new life because I didn't realize.
Busy guy.
No, you're not. I just
Yes.
no, you're not. Nothing's more important than me in my movies. Anyway, the point is, like, it's going to take you time to adjust to this new life. So more than likely, there will be multiple guest co-hosts for this show. You will never know who's going to be
coming.
sitting opposite of me until Jamie is ready to really take this to the
So
next
I've
level.
really matured into my new role.
Yes. So,
I'm on probation, guys. I'm on probation for a while until my movie knowledge is extended by at least 10%.
yes, and you may see some familiar faces as like during this show in respects to if we have guests, because we've discussed with certain members of Media Molecule that are really huge Marvel MCU comic book fans that were interested in coming on the show to discuss the MCU. And I also have a few other guests that I've been speaking with, filmmakers, some game devs, still waiting on the okay from one of the devs from God of War, Ragnarok, as well as some other things coming. But they've expressed interest. So anyway, I welcome everyone. I hope you weren't thrown off too much because there was a reason that we decided to do this today.
Yeah.
One of those reasons was the fact that we have a few people working on their submissions for the 100th episode of the Made in Dreams podcast, and they've been in somewhat of a crunch
Because of the deadline.
Because of the deadline to get things done. And I don't want to put that stress on anybody. It's dreams. We do it for fun. The other reason was because we have two guests coming up, and one of them would have fallen on our 100th episode. And I think they deserve to have an episode of their own. And so this allows us to shift that 100th episode back one more week so that this person has time to come. Yes, still coming. Like I said, I hope no one's too turned off. But with that all said, it's time to get on to the show. Yes.
Let's do it.
So let's talk about The Witcher. And the main question I have for it is The Witcher pretty much canceled?
I think in terms of people's opinions, even if it's now fantastic with the new seasons, with the change of role, I still don't think it's going to do very good, purely because it's been boycotted. And rightly so in certain respects. Like, he did such a great job. Like, he is the character. He's played the games, he's read the books, like, he knows all the history and the lore. I've never seen someone that is so devoted to a character like he was with The Witcher. Like, he really took the role and made it his own. And obviously with Superman and everything, that's obviously clearly the reason why there's a conflict of diaries there. That's why he can't continue it. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be as good, purely because, like, you've just been given this A-star perfect role, and now you're changing it all of a sudden. That does have a major effect on the feel of the show, in my opinion. Like, don't get me wrong, the other guys, he's still going to do a great job, but when you have a literal Witcher and then you replace him, it's going to have a major effect on the feeling of the show.
Yeah, and I mean, it came down to much more than just him reprising his role as Superman, because he's been fighting with the showrunner of The Witcher.
Oh, yes, there is that too.
For the entirety of its run so far. Like, he keeps trying to get them to stick faithfully to the books. and they refused to do it. Now, that's been known through the first 2 seasons of The Witcher. But what really kicked all of this off, or what seemed to kick it off, was that X-Men 97, which is a show that's coming out for Disney Plus, which basically brings back the X-Men show from the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
A writer from that came out and exposed how the writing staff for The Witcher don't like the source material. They don't like The Witcher at all. The games or the books.
But you see, this is what I don't get, right? And maybe you can shed some light because you know film and how it works and stuff. Why would they deliberately put people that do not like the source material on a show? Like, I just don't understand that.
And I'll get to it, because like, not only do they not like the source material, they openly mock it. And basically, this writer who exposed all of this, he's like, as all of us would immediately think, and why you asked that question just now, is like, he believes that you must be a fan of the material you are adapting if you have any hope of success when doing so. And what it comes down to is, what people don't realize is, whether you're a writer on a multi-million-dollar show, or literally the person, like the director for a lot of things, unless you're like the writer, director, and producer, whatever, you're just there for a job. Like,
I get that, but you're in a job of creativity. Like,
yes,
you have to have some form of excitement for what you are working on, for your work to come through as genuine. It's like working on a game that you have no faith in, or you have no interest in, and you hate it. Well, that's going to reflect in your work, surely. It's not like it's a desk job.
But let me just say, because like, this is what it comes down to. That's what you would hope for. But at the end of the day, you have to think of how many people, just like people who work in dreams or work in other creative avenues, your first job isn't going to be, not saying any of these people are first-time jobbers here, but your first 15, 25 jobs are going to be stuff that you don't want to do, because every writer has an original story, or at least a story that they feel is original, but they have to work up through the system just like everyone else. Now, mind you, when I say this, I'm not excusing anything about this. I truly believe, as we've all stated now, that if you're going to adapt something, if you're going to be a part of a show, especially something that's an adaptation from other source material, you need to be able to capture the heart of that material. I'm not opposed to changes, personally. I'm not one of those people where it's like, if they make an X-Men movie, then Wolverine better have on yellow spandex. I'm not one of those people. I'm like, make the changes you need, but it needs to be Wolverine.
Yeah, and he stays true to the character.
Yeah, that's all I care about. You can change about everything.
I'll do you one better then. So let's forget the fact that obviously people, like someone said, like in the chat, Miliardi said, you can't love everything you work on, you got to pay the bill. So like, I totally get that. Like, if you're offered the job and it's good money and you're a writer, you may not like the source material, but you need to pay the bill, so you'll write it. So let's change the script then. Why would Netflix hire someone that openly does not like the source material? Why wouldn't the people funding the show,
I'm gonna tell you right
want
now,
someone that would have total faith in it?
Because they probably weren't told. You can't forget that no matter who you're talking with, you're speaking about normal people. And and they probably wouldn't expect someone who didn't like the show to even try to be a writer for it. I'm sure that's not a question that comes up. Like, as simple as
should
it may
be.
seem.
Like in the interview process, when you're interviewing for it, you should be like, have you played the Witcher games? Have you read the books? Do you even know what the Witcher is? And just off their reaction alone, whether they're excited about the Witcher and they can tell you a bit of the story or how their experience was with the game or the book, should be enough to justify whether or not they're viable for the role, not based off of their CV, but from their experience with the franchise itself.
Yo, believe me, I agree with everything you're saying. But even if they were asked, they would probably be like, hell yeah, I played the games. Geralt, all they did is everybody does like the bare minimum research so they can answer a little bit of questions. And I'm just saying, there's no way to truly safeguard it unless the only person I would ask this of, especially since it's out now that Henry Cavill and this showrunner were basically going at it constantly, is why was she the showrunner? Or why was this person the showrunner if they didn't vet these things? Like the dude from X-Men 97, who's the writer who's basically the showrunner over there, like he actually went in depth and was like, you need to know. You need to be a fan. You need to know what you're adapting. That's what he's working off of. So, Notorious asks, what are you trying to say? Would Netflix mass hire writers without telling them the future projects? No, what I'm saying is that when you get the opportunity to work on a project, because writers have agents too. Like, yeah, they may seek you out if you like did something and they're like, oh, well, that person would be a good... There's two things. You can be sought out. But most of the time, you are being hired as a writer. You're not being hired as a Witcher fan.
Yeah, like, in my opinion, it should be both.
And our opinion is that you should be both, but I'm just saying it could come out that it just isn't that. It isn't that way. So, but basically, to get back to it, the day after this expose came out is when the news of Cavill leaving Witcher dropped. And he's being replaced by Liam Hemsworth. And unfortunately,
I really don't know how I feel about that, to be honest.
Unfortunately, I don't see anyone giving Hemsworth a chance. And the show will most likely be canceled after the third season, if not them allowing the fourth season just to kind of wrap up something. But it's pretty much dead.
Yeah, and it's such a shame because it is a fantastic series.
I mean, I personally believe that Cavill carried it because there's a lot about it that's not great, but it was great watching him. So
I thought it was great, but yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Notorious said, as an inspiring writer, I would try to research and please the fan base. But this is the issue, and this is something that I also want to bring up to people. A show's success rarely comes down to its fan base. Every fan base thinks that they must be pleased or else. But if something doesn't appeal to the common viewer, it will not succeed. And that goes for everything. You will have your fan base. And your fan base, yeah, you obviously want to keep them happy. But the success of what you do is mostly based off of what the people outside of said fan base that you could bring in. There's very few IPs. We all know the ones that don't go by the rule, but there are very few IPs that can literally just say, oh, my fan base will love it. It's success. No, your fan base may help spread it. So that's something you definitely got to keep in mind. But if it meshes with the common viewer, perfect example, as we were talking about in the pre-show, Venom. The common viewer loved Venom. Anyone who loved Venom didn't like that movie. Anyone who was a previous fan of Venom, I have to pull your card to check if you like that movie.
It's trash. It's absolute rubbish.
But that's a perfect example of it didn't have to please the fans.
Yeah.
It needed to be there for the general audience because no matter what, that's the biggest That's the
And, like,
biggest group of people you have to have give their money.
And like Marvel as a fan base is the perfect example to use for that, because the Marvel fan base is absolutely huge. Like, and I don't believe that any true Marvel fan enjoyed Venom at all. Like, anyone who appreciates the character and have seen Venom in previous things, like, you can't have enjoyed that. I hated every second of it. It was painful to watch.
Good.
But that just goes to prove your point even further, that with a fan base as humongous as Marvel, it didn't matter because the general consumer enjoyed it. And that's how we've managed to get a second one, and now we're going to get a third one, and they'll probably keep milking it until there's nothing left of it, and each one's going to get worse and worse and worse, but that doesn't make a difference because the general consumer is enjoying it.
Yeah. So we're of a general consensus that Witcher's just canceled.
Yeah.
Like, if not until after the 4th season, it's canceled in everyone's mind for right now. So, I mean, I'm going to watch season 4 because Liam Hemsworth, this is a huge deal for him. And I hate that it would, it had to come down to this, but he's an actor. Of course, his brother, Chris Hemsworth, way more famous and all that stuff. But really, Liam's not bad. He's just relegated to VOD, like straight to VOD video movies and stuff like that. This would have been, if he had gotten this role at the beginning of The Witcher, this would have been his break. And he's getting handed off a torch that's literally been extinguished.
Yeah, I mean, no,
I feel bad for him.
Like, I do feel bad for him because even if he gives the performance of his life, he's not going to fill those shoes. It's just plain and simple. Like, he could give the best performance that he will ever give in his acting career, and it could be Oscar winning, it could be perfect, everything about it was flawless. He's still not going to fill the shoes of Henry Cavill. He just can't do it. It's impossible. And it is such a shame for someone that you can see is trying to find that breakthrough IP to get into, like his brother has with Marvel, and it's doomed from the get-go. It's such a shame for him.
I mean, it's kind of like, did anyone here watch the TV show Spartacus?
Yes.
That show, and that the lead actor dying from cancer, RIP, really just threw that show for a loop. And it just never recovered. And it's kind of like that, because the guy that replaced him when they finally did get back to the main storyline after that season 2 offshoot, which was really great. But what?
I didn't think it was good as the first season, I gotta admit.
It was a detour that I didn't think was going to be good. But that middle story was really good. Yeah, it was really good.
But like,
once they came back,
no, they killed it. Like, I went into Blood and Sand with no opinion at all. I didn't even know what it was, and I absolutely enjoyed every second of it. I loved how raw it was, and there was no red tape, there's no barriers. Like, they just filmed whatever they wanted to film, and it was just so grungy, and I loved it. And then we got a weird second season that went off base a bit, and then the third season come in and just completely killed the vibe for it completely.
Actually, on my Twitch page, if y'all see the little welcome that I do for people, I keep bringing up coin to purse. And that's from Spartacus. That's why I used it in that, because I was watching it at the time years ago when I made that little section. But yeah, so it sucks. And, I'm guilty of when, like, a main character changes in a show, I kind of fade out of it. I'm kind of not as excited about it. It's like I just inadvertently mentally check out a little bit, unless I don't know, unless something makes me watch it. I'm like, oh, and it's like super surprising. But yeah, it's Henry Cavill's back. To wrap it back to our pre-show, the post-credit scene for Black Adam really set a tone that I can't wait to see where James Gunn takes that. Like, where he basically, now that he's in control, takes over the DCEU and where he directs it after The Flash eventually comes out. But yeah, so let's get to our second topic. No, actually, let's take a moment to go back through chat just to make sure we're not missing everything. So Big Mofo Gaming said, sometimes you can't please everyone. That is absolutely true. Not really. The book series turned game was a success. The game made the book a success, if you're talking about The Witcher.
Agreed there completely.
Like, it's absolutely, you can track it financially.
Yeah.
Those books were damn near unknown until the games came out. And when the games started having success, all of the books started to sell. It did not, like, the book series didn't have real success. And by real success, I mean notoriety until after the games. So that's actual financial fact. You can go look that up. People need to learn to manage their expectations. I'm actually working on a video for my YouTube currently that goes into how fan bases are the worst possible thing about creative IPs. Yeah. On top of another topic, which is how old are your superheroes? Because dealing with my problem with paying attention to younger, like, superheroes that are, well, not superheroes in the comics, but when they pick someone really young to play a superhero that I've grown up with my whole life. Which also leads into another video, which is how come IPs don't grow up with us. But we'll get back to that all in the weeks and months to come. Maybe they can make The Witcher a Time Lord. Please, God, no. Only Henry Cavill had read the books before the games. Yeah, basically. Yeah, but I think even he started out with the games. And then he got into the books and then got really into the books. But yeah, it's like if you didn't play the game, if you didn't play the game, most likely, or was like in where the author like lives, you didn't know it existed. And anybody that says otherwise, you're a damn liar. The author had seller's remorse when they have no, he didn't have seller's remorse. He tried to sue CD Projekt Red for an extra cut because he sold. Seller's remorse, basically. But yeah, he tried to come back and milk it. And it's like, yo, you sold it, bro. Now, I always believe that once something becomes certain big and you've made a certain number of billions, yeah, you should probably throw the writers some extra penance. Because writers are completely, underrated and not respected as much as they should. They're responsible for mostly everything that you love. And so, yeah, I believe they should have given him money, and I think they did. But for him to make the big stink that he made about it, saying that they had treated him unfairly, is like, no, man, the contract, they didn't void a contract. You just didn't believe in basically the price of your own shit.
Yeah.
It's,
so, like, oh, wait, it actually is worth this much? I'm gonna sue.
Yeah, it's like, but I'm also the guy that always tells everybody about the woman who designed the Nike swoosh and how she was paid like $34 for that logo. And so, yeah. Yo, how's it going? Coinum, it is going well. That's capitalism, bro. It is, isn't it? Writers don't even respect themselves. It's true. It's true. Most of the time, we're just like, really? You want to you want to give me something for all this hard work? Oh, Jesus, Lord, thank you. Like, it's just, it is what it is. But, all right. So, let's go ahead. Wait. Yeah, the game made the book famous, but it wouldn't be a thing without the book. That's true. Absolute fact.
It's true, absolute but it doesn't negate the fact that the book still wouldn't have been what it was without the game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, the book would have been what it was. It just would have been obscure and not known. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's just the way it is. But yeah. So now let's head on to number 2. And this one should get people talking in the chat. So there's a really big battle coming up. A huge battle, unlike anything we've ever seen. And it's going to be held at the Video Game Awards.
Oh,
and
boy.
It's going to be between God of War and Elden Ring.
Okay.
And I want Jamie to start this out for Game of the Year. Who should win it?
So it's a really tough one. It really, really is.
It's really not.
You think so?
It's not at all. It's not at all. It's nowhere near close. The only thing that's holding one up over the as a possibility is IP recognition. But go ahead. Explain to me.
I would say that Elden Ring should get it purely based off of what it did for the industry and what it did for From Software and how the game just completely blew up. I think that's who, if I was looking at the judging board, I would say that's what they would pick. I personally would pick Ragnarok. I think the game is absolutely flawless and it deserves it no different than 2018 God of War did. The game is absolutely amazing. But I think it's definitely going to turn in God of War's favor. Simply because God of War is much more fresher in everybody's minds. Everybody's just played it or currently playing it. Elden Ring came out at the beginning of the year, so it's kind of at the back of everybody's minds. But I am tossed between the two. I think Elden Ring definitely deserves it, but I am biased because I prefer God of War. I absolutely love the franchise, and I think it deserves to win it no different than its previous game did.
And I'm going to start off with Yaffer in chat, who said, I think Elden Ring for innovation. And that's the main point. That's the main point. As far as innovation, as far as breaking the mold of basically that genre of gaming, as well as the execution, as well as the depth, as well as the content that's encompassed in an actual $70 game, Elden Ring broke so many conventions and truly gave people something new for the open world RPG. And y'all know, because I've talked about it many times in the other podcast, that I have a problem with open world games because until Elden Ring came out, I would always say that it's because it's just too big. It's like, I want the set story pieces. I want the action set pieces. I want each individual detail of my adventure to be just crafted to perfection, like a film, like a movie. And yes, Elden Ring was $60. And Elden Ring broke all of my notions of why I disliked open world games. All the things that it did, not holding your hand, being extremely versatile as far as how you want to play it, the enemy variation, the artwork of the different lands. You're not just stuck looking at the same thing over and over again or like retextured. Every piece of that game is crafted to a level that has not been seen in recent memory with its diversity. Now, that's not to say anything. That's not to say anything bad about Horizon Zero Dawn or Horizon Forbidden West or God of War Ragnarok. Those games are also crafted to a beauty that no one can take anything from those developers. But Elden Ring is completely fresh.
Yeah, I would agree. It is completely fresh.
And oh god, they're back. They're back.
Oh no,
and unfortunately, there's no way for me to stop them. There's your friends. I knew Big Mofo was gonna bring that up. But yeah, like I literally would play these games, and God of War isn't one of them because they do give me more of a direct beeline towards just staying on the story. But like the moment I would start like Horizon, it's like I open the map, icons everywhere. They're telling me where I'm going. There's no real exploration. Everyone's telling you where you're going, what you got to do. It's still beautifully crafted and so great. But I just get bored immediately. It's like, okay, I did that fight. Oh, I'm going to fight these things across the next 3 fields? Okay. Okay, well, Bad Robo seems to disagree with me, but I say Elden Ring was fresh. And believe me, Elden Ring isn't even my favorite game from Software. I think Sekiro was their true masterpiece, but Elden Ring also is a masterpiece. I just prefer Sekiro. Sekiro was amazing. But yeah, and it's just the idea that in my mind, the work done on God of War Ragnarok is always breathtaking. But compared to Elden Ring's success alone as a game from that developer is, you can't ignore how great it is. You just can't. No, none of their other games combined have made as much as Elden Ring. And there's a reason for it. Let me see here. Coinum. You could make it so that you got to be subscribed on your YouTube for at least 5 minutes until you can chat just to reduce bots. I haven't found that option yet, but I'll be looking at it as soon as we get there. It's Daryl. Content-wise, I think Elden Ring won. Exactly. Just off of content alone. And the idea that they're still talking about there being a DLC coming out for it. My friend played Elden Ring for over 392 hours and still found something he had never found before.
Yeah, that's very rare to find.
There's no other game in recent memory to the fidelity of Elden Ring where one can say that. And that's before a DLC. If God of War wins, it is completely off of recency bias. That's how I'm going to view it. Now, will I be mad if it wins? No. No, both games are making their money. Nobody's really hurt, and let's get down to it. Most award shows are garbage. Okay? They're there kind of like the Oscars where everyone gets to sit around and pat each other on the back. I love to see it. But the old competition aspect of it, I've never been into it, which is why as much as I love movies, I haven't watched the Oscars in over a decade. But I think that's the only way God of War wins, because I don't see it as being, it's a triumph. It's a masterpiece. Like you said, just like the original. Well, the original of the newer. Yeah. But in its all, I don't think it beats Elden Ring. Is there more of what you wanted to go into?
Not really, no. I mean, you make some really great points, and they're like the two strongest games I think I've ever seen go head to head for like Game of the Year. There's always been a landslide, isn't there? Like when a game comes out and you're like, oh, well, that's it. It's just Game of the Year. Nothing else is going to top it. And that was the case with Elden Ring, and then came along God of War Ragnarok, which is also a masterpiece. And it's very rare we're in this situation where there's two flawless games going head to head for Game of the Year, and both of them, in my opinion, deserve it on their own individual merits. Yeah. Like everything that you've said about Elden Ring, it deserves it hands down for the innovation that it's brought to the whole gaming genre, and Ragnarok deserves it because it's just one-upped God of War 2018. It's done everything that God of War 2018 did and more and better, and they both deserve it. But if I had to pick one based on what a Game of the Year should be given for, it would be Elden Ring. But I personally think that Ragnarok is going to swoop that up straight away, because it's literally weeks after it came out we're having the nominations out, so yeah. Everyone's going to be playing that. It's going to be fresh in their minds. The internet is still trending with Ragnarok, so.
Well, for those that are seeing this after the fact, tell me who you think should win in the comments on YouTube. So, I guess with that, let's go back through. It's a lot harder to keep up with chat in this new format we have, attacking these each of these sections. So, let me see. Go back to Let's see. Restream Bad Robo. Elden Ring has old mechanics and lots of reskinned bosses. I've been pretty deep into the Elden Ring things with people data mining, and I know that there is a boss that they ended up not using from an old game that they did rebuild for Elden Ring. But as far as reskin bosses, I think that's a little harsh. Old mechanics. Old mechanics at its base, but with some new flourishes. Because let me tell you, if it controlled like Demon Souls or Dark Souls, I wouldn't play it. I hate those controls.
You could say the exact same thing about Ragnarok, though.
I mean, of any game.
It uses QuickTime events from the PS2 era. Like, no other game really uses QuickTime events anymore, and the mechanics are pretty much the same, but like you said, old but flourished. I'd say the same thing would be fair to say about God of War. It uses the same action style that was in the PS2 era, but just a lot more refined in the newer gen versions.
Yeah, Jet Yeti said it took him 200 hours to complete the game the first time. Yeah, and you didn't get everything. but yeah, like that's the option. Shovel and Sandbox at God of War is way more accessible and the controls are more fluid, approachable. It makes
Definitely,
you learn. I would say yes. I would say yes, but
more accessible.
But that's
100%.
But that's also what intrigues me about Elden Ring. It's the idea that I jump on a game and I'm not immediately awesome. Like really, it has to be brought up how most games you buy, you may be put in some harrowing situations, but for the most part, when you pick it up, you're going to beat it, and you're going to do it relatively easy. There is something to be said about having to pick up a perfect example. I'm still in my first playthrough of Elden Ring. I'm right at the end of the game. I could have beaten it, I could have tried to beat it many times by now. But I was like, you know what? I want to go back and see about switching up my weapon. I think I'd like to see what a different weapon is. Because I don't know how to use my new weapon as well as I knew how to use the old one, it doesn't matter that my levels are up. I can be killed by people in the first area of the game. Having to learn like that when playing a game is highly underrated. Having actual difficulty. Now, I'm not one of these people that are like, oh, you're no good at Souls games. Get good, bro. No, you don't have to. I'm just saying that there's something to be said for picking up a game, running into an actual challenge, and overcoming it, as opposed to picking up a game, putting in the hours, the base hours that you need, and beating it and being done with it. If you actually, because y'all have heard me say this about Souls games before, you either give up and hate it, or you stay with it long enough to absolutely love it. This game is no different. And if you don't give up for the simple fact that you're not having a power fantasy in your first 10 hours of playing it, you'll never know what's actually there for the game. Because you have to learn. You're not just God running around. You're trying to become God. But you're not just God running around going, oh, well, if I just keep tapping square and triangle for heavy and light attacks, it'll be okay. More people have beaten this game than any Souls game before it. The director even said more people will beat this game than other people who've tried Souls games. So they are working on making it more acceptable or accessible without compromising their design. And they achieved it. I can't say enough. JC Hedges, honestly, it was really nice to see Plague Tale nominated. I just finished it and totally deserves the nomination, but probably not the win. Yeah, it probably won't get the win, but a Plague Tale, I have watched it be played. I haven't played it myself because it just didn't really interest me that much, but I like the system they came up with for the rats.
Yeah,
that was really cool. And the set pieces for the second one look really cool. Shovel and Sandbox, not to say that Elden Ring didn't have fluid controls. JC was PT better than the first. I couldn't stay with the first one.
PT? Not sure.
If Stray won, I would just laugh, but I wouldn't down it.
Oh, PT Plague's Tale.
Yeah. Because Stray is so awesome.
Stray's great.
Speaking
Great
of another
little indie
video
game.
I'm working on.
Yeah.
Let's see. One edge God of War has is it showcases all aspects of game development at their strongest. Definitely has better usability and accessibility than Elden Ring by a long shot. Beginner usability and accessibility, yes. Big Mofo Gaming says he hasn't played either, so he'll make his judgment once he plays. Everything about Elden Ring can only be accomplished by it being a video game. The absolute best parts of God of War could be accomplished in a film. Yes, I agree completely, and I wouldn't be opposed. And somebody's supposed to be doing a God of War show coming up soon, aren't they?
Amazon, I believe.
Is it Amazon?
Yeah.
Horizon was pretty much smothered when it came out next to Elden Ring, but then again, for me, I don't care if a game releases next to another, but then again, I'm not part of marketing. Yeah, people be salty. And rightfully so, honestly.
Yeah.
JC Hedges, as someone who works in the industry, I'm going to burst some bubbles. All game devs reuse stuff all the time because it makes sense and allows games to get made. It would be stupid to redo boat animations for God of War or the combat animations in Elden Ring. Yeah. And yet, they, like I said, they still did add some flourishes. But yeah, definitely. Always good to have a voice from the industry come in for us.
Yes.
I got most of it, but I think I'm still missing like 4 or 5 quest lines. Oh, that was another conversation being had. Elden Ring has that shared experience. It feels like being in a guild, hearing stories of adventurers toppling bosses, finding things in each story is different, and the excitement of having people when people talk about beating a strong boss. Yeah. So, I mean, there is something about it. It's just whether or not you stay long enough to experience it, or whether you kind of wrote it off in your mind at the beginning because you just didn't feel like a Souls game. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all.
That's just me.
Yeah,
that's just me in the nutshell. I don't play Souls games.
And I'm going to tell you, one of the things people don't talk about enough is the fact that you can play with a friend, and playing with a friend is one of the funniest things you could possibly ever encounter. Because just going through that world with a friend, and y'all know my love of co-op, is a whole different journey. Milo Artie, what do you mean, Mighty? You are awesome. So any game you jump into, you're awesome already. No. I appreciate the confidence, but no. Especially Souls games, unless it was Sekiro, which I still wasn't awesome, but I picked it up way faster than the other ones because I loved the combat. It's the best sword fighting ever in a game. I will hear no arguments. And if you haven't played it, don't try to put up one. But yeah, I appreciate the confidence in me, but no. Your boy, there's a reason I do podcasts and not a lot of gameplay on my channel. It's because nobody wants to watch this man suffer. Art style, graphic wise, God of War for me. See, I go the exact opposite way. No disrespect to it, but the sheer breadth of differentiating diverse settings, backdrops, characters, designs, like structures, all of that. Elden Ring dwarfs any game. It just does. The only one that it might not dwarf, and just simply off of the fact that The setting is maybe Cyberpunk 2077. Maybe. Because, most of the games like this have big sprawling fields that you have to walk across like it's Lord of the Rings. That tree is a little different. Man, get the hell out of here. Elden Ring mastered the whole conquering the controls as part of the game. Yeah, but it's not so difficult that you can't do it if you care. But I say, most people get turned away by the fact that you're not a god the first time you open the game. It's like, enemies, I'll survive this. No, there's no guarantee you will unless you actually play it the right way, know how you're doing it, understand your weapon, and some trial and error should be more accepting from the community. From gamers. In my opinion, it's anyway. Really focused on keeping the good parts of the challenge and bringing a lot more accessibility. They did a phenomenal job of that. Yes, they did. Let me run through a couple last things. We have other topics we want to get to. Really, I think Sekiro is great, but have you played Ghost of Tsushima? No comparison. Sekiro is better. I understand one liking Ghost of Tsushima as a game more, but as far as the sword combat, Ghost of Tsushima is more flashy. But it's not as detailed. It's just not. Close. Not close.
That's what Soft do, though. They make detailed gameplay. Their mechanics are super detailed. That's what they're known for.
The only thing that could make Elden Ring better is if there was a weapon that truly brought over the full combat system of Sekiro. When they first told me it wasn't going to be like Sekiro, I'm not going to lie. My love of the game kind of fell. I was just like, oh, well, I guess I won't be playing that. Because I thought Sekiro was a turning point for them as far as the type of combat that they would be offering. And yeah, there's some nuances that have changed, some things that have changed between other Souls games and Elden Ring. But if it had been Sekiro's combat in Elden Ring, oh my God, I would be cursing anyone out for even suggesting that God of War. It's just not close to me if that were the case. Cyberpunk was so detailed that the game itself was glitchy. Yeah. I was looking for Sword Party as well, or Sword Parry. Yeah. Good God, if they had put in that combat, that rhythm. Sekiro was like a musical rhythm game in sword combat. It was so new. It was everything I'd always wanted from sword combat in a game. It's not easy. You need to be on your ball. But when you pull it off, the reward is so succulent. It's just so juicy. Right in your... Yeah, y'all know what I'm saying. Anyone that knows. I gave Sekiro a try after playing Elden Ring and couldn't get into it. I think I need to rewire my brain and try again. Yeah, it's different from everything else. It's different from everything they've made. Not only is it more linear, still a little open, but more linear, but you have different paths you can take. You have places you don't need to go. You have extra people that you find and storylines in the way of Elden Ring, but it's just the combat. The combat and seeing someone who's excellent at it, oh my God. It's just, if I can beat Sekiro, y'all can beat Elden Ring. Let me put it that way. I think it doesn't help that the only time I have for games is early morning and late at night when my reflexes are at their weakest. There's no good time for me to play at my current age. I barely have wrist anymore. But you know what? It's all good. Mathematics, that's on you, dog. You the math whiz. Don't come at me with that smart people talk. No, I'm just like, I'm still stuck at the final boss. Also, how come no one is capitalizing on the sword slicing feature in Rising Revengeance? That was epic. Revengeance failed because of its name. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance was like one of the most, it made people not care about the game before it even came out. But Sekiro's has a similar but more forgiving version of Sekiro's parry system. Yeah, not comparable. You don't. If you're fighting with swords in a video game, in my perfect game, there's no forgiveness. If you mess up, you mess up. Because that's how they used to do sword battles back in the old, well, how sword battles actually were. Instead of people flipping around, spinning the sword all behind their back. Most duels that you hear of in the past, especially in the age of the samurai, most of that stuff was decided in one swing of each sword. If you messed up, you died. That's just the bottom line. Like, yeah, there's tactics. Yeah, there's some foreplay with how you're going to attack, giving some feints and jukes. But yeah, I prefer the more Kurosawa type of battle, where it's just like, if you have a sword, you need to be on the ball or you die. That's just something I've always preferred. Speaking of preferred, I don't think we're going to get to all of our topics today because we're burning through time. But I'll shorten some things up. But this is something that we can talk about because I want to know your opinion. I want to know your opinion on this, my friend.
All right.
And that's, what type of superhero IP games, like what type of game doesn't work for you in the superhero genre? Like, even if they do commercially well, what's a superhero-led type of game or game genre that you just have no interest in?
So go on.
No, would it help you if I
Yeah,
shared?
Yeah, give me
Okay, well, if I shared how I got to this, it's because very soon we have Midnight Suns coming out. Marvel Midnight Suns. It's an upcoming game from XCOM past devs. For those who don't know, XCOM is pretty great. And this topic came to me because it's an isometric, turn-based card game battle sim with a story. Not only is that a lot, but isometric dungeon crawling Marvel games have always had no interest to me at all. And I'm talking, we can go back to XmenLegends through what it birthed in the Marvel Alliance games. I hate those games. I hate them. They don't connect with me, and it's because that's not the relationship that I want with my heroes when playing a game. With all due respect to the Alliance games, because they made tons of money, they're still making copies of them. But that top-down isometric dungeon crawler takes me out of it. I'm a viewer now. Like, you've made me a viewer.
Yeah.
And I'm watching all my hero and all these flashy lights, and I'm not really a part of it at all. And, like, there's only so much of a story you can tell in that type of game because of that disconnect between the player and what's happening on screen. So, and I know... Go ahead.
Well, I completely 100% agree with you. I think that type of style of game with a superhero just doesn't work for me at all. Batman, when it originally came out, like back in like the 360 PS3 days, absolutely loved it. Loved the way that the gameplay worked, how you was in control of the character, the story, and everything. Then we get Spider-Man PS4, which is basically kind of the same thing, but more refined, and like the combat system is done better. You've got the web swinging and the free roam aspect of it. That, to me, is how you do a superhero game.
And it all started...
Any other way for me is a no-go. It needs to be done the way that Insomniac has done it. And to me, Insomniac now should just become Sony's Marvel IP game dev, whatever. That's it. They should just do Marvel stuff, because the way that they've done Spider-Man, and we've had 2 games from them now, they're flawless. time will tell if they can do the same with Wolverine, and if they pull that off, which I have no doubt that they will, that's the way you do a superhero game. I do not like the idea of Midnight Suns. I will not be playing it. As soon as I heard that it'd be like this card-based thing, I was just out. Like, that's just not for me personally how a superhero game needs to be made. You need to feel like the superhero. You need to feel their power and their story and be in control of them, and doing it from isometric with playing cards, it's just not the way to go.
Yeah. And, I'm personally not saying that Marvel Midnight Suns is bad or the Alliance games are bad. But because there's certain things about Marvel Midnight Suns and the fact that it actually has, like, you control dialogue exchanges, and there is supposedly a really good story that's supposed to be going through it. But as you brought up, like, I believe there's one game that goes so under the radar that people don't remember that, in my opinion, it kind of started. It's the reason for the Arkhams. It's the reason for what we get for Spider-Man and hopefully Wolverine with Insomniac. And that game that truly set my expectations of how I would play with my heroes, Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Y'all know I'm a Hulk fan, and you think you're not alone. Hulk Ultimate Destruction literally inspired all of these. And if someone said they didn't, once again, I'd have to check that you aren't just straight up a liar. Hulk Ultimate Destruction set the bar for everything, so much so that it inspired these games. It even inspired what Hulk does in these movies. People just don't know the reference. It is the most underrated, not played, not remembered superhero game of all time. And when everybody was calling superhero games all flops and horrible and, they need to find a way to make it work, they found a way to make it work. You just didn't play it. Hulk Ultimate Destruction was amazing. And now, yes, we have Spider-Man. We have, we had the Arkham series. That's, not the new one, but we had the Arkham series. And like, those are beautiful. Those are what I expect. And it's not to say you can't do anything else. Like, make as many different types of games as you need. But these games, these isometric games where you're watching things happen, it's just so...
I want to be in
I get
action.
So bored. Yeah. I get so bored. And but I hope they do well, because I love the XCOM devs. I really do. Like, I've loved XCOM 1, 2. They came out with another thing that was like a XCOM spinoff, but it was still XCOM. I can't remember it now, but awesome. I loved it. But yeah, I really dislike the Marvel Alliance style of games. And the idea of interacting with a turn-based superhero card game to attack thing, doesn't...
Turn-based was bad enough, but then you add the whole card mechanic on top of it.
See, I'm fine with the turn-based. As people know, I prefer turn-based to the current model of, like, RPG thing, where they're trying to do this weird blend of RPG and, like, what do you call it? Like, straight action. I'd never liked it ever since Final Fantasy 12 when they introduced it, and I was just not... No, it was 10-2 is when they started to make the change, and then 11 is when they started doing the MMORPG style, and then 12 is when I got completely disgusted with the idea that they didn't leave that style for the MMORPG and stopped playing it. That's when I stopped playing Final Fantasy at all. But yeah, it's just... I want the game to do well. It's just one of those things where that's not the interaction that I strive for when playing as a hero. Like, playing as a hero that I've grown up, have allegiance to, as far as, I love them. I've bought hundreds of dollars worth of their comics, stuff like that. Like, that's not how I want to interact. So...
No, I agree. And we've been spoiled with Insomniac, because they've really, like, took took Spider-Man as an IP and really perfected everything about it, like the combat, the web swinging, like everything is perfect about it. And they did the same with Miles Morales. That was another great one. And now they're doing Wolverine. And if they perfect Wolverine, which is probably the most curious game that's coming out because it's such a different leap from Spider-Man, like everything about it is going to be different. Like there's no swinging around a city anymore. You're on your feet, and the aggressiveness of Wolverine himself and how the mechanics are going to work with that. If they pull that off as good as they've done Spider-Man, then you're really stuck. You know that's it. That's just the way to go. You can't really do it another way and expect it to be as successful. Like there's no way that Midnight Suns is going to be as successful as Spider-Man PS4. It's
But
just not going to happen.
but it doesn't. To be fair, it doesn't need to be.
No, it doesn't.
It just
need
needs
be,
to have
but-
it needs to have an audience, which is why I say I'm not trying to say it's bad. I want it to succeed, but at the same time, it won't succeed because of me, because of my patronage, because I just can't get into it. Like,
Yeah. But wouldn't you say though that games like Spider-Man that Insomniac have done has caused like you would have had this opinion regardless, yes, but would you say that because of what you've experienced with what Insomniac has done with superheroes, that's sort of pushing this thought further than what it would have done if you had not have experienced this?
I mean, if I'm getting your question correct, I still would have experienced it because I know what Hulk Ultimate Destruction was.
I suppose, yeah.
And it's literally been the thing that I compare everything to. I compared Arkham to it, even though they're completely different games in a sense. I compare any game that has to do with you interacting with a superhero, it's compared to Hulk Ultimate Destruction right off the bat. Because like I said, now I'm sure people will go back and be like, oh, it's not that good. It looks like crap. Yeah, the thing's been out forever. But I would still say that if you play it, you'll get where I'm coming from. As far as the hatred for turn-based games, I don't know what that's all about. I love turn-based. Because
I love turn-based. Like massive Final Fantasy fan here, so like, you know, I absolutely love turn-based and it definitely has its place, but not in a superhero game in my opinion. It just doesn't belong. Like, it goes against the whole thing of a superhero. A superhero is not going to just sit there and wait for an attack. Like, you know, oh, I'm just going to sit here and wait to be hit. It takes you away from the whole theme of what a superhero is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
agree.
Like,
I agree.
It kind of breaks the immersion of the character itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, we'll keep it moving so that we could try to get through the rest of these topics
in time.
Yeah, but all right. So next thing we're gonna go into 2 years of PlayStation 5. How do you grade it? And I want Jamie to take this one, and I might talk about the Xbox Series X. But
oh god, we have to. But yeah. As far as I would grade the last 2 years of PS5, I think it's been pretty good, in my opinion. We've had a new Horizon game. We've had a Ratchet and Clank game, which I'm a big fan of the series. That was good. We've had some interesting games like Returnal. We've finished the year off fantastically with a massive blockbuster game, Ragnarok, for this year. I would say they've done surprisingly well, considering, you know, the climate with COVID and everything, not only getting out the consoles themselves, but, you know, with developers working remotely and stuff on these huge titles as well. I can imagine that really put a spanner in the work of developing these things. I would say that they've really set the pace for their new console. I think that moving forward, they have a really good fitting. They have their foot in the right place. And I'm pleased with what I've experienced so far on PS5.
most people don't have that answer.
Really?
Yeah, and I've
before you get into the Xbox stuff, what's your opinion on the last 2 years of PS5?
I think it's been, considering, even though people don't like to be considerate anymore, considering what we've all been through these last 3 years, leading into the release as well as during the first 2 years of development, I think it's amazing. I think
We've had some massive hitters. Like, we've had some big games.
The only argument that I feel is a valid argument, even though it doesn't really pay attention to, like I said, the pandemic and everything, is the fact that the games are still focused towards PS4 and PS5. PS4 being the lackluster portion of that. It has defeated the purpose of a lot of games, but understandable still why it was done. But with that in mind, that's the only con. Like, there were people talking about we haven't gotten enough exclusives and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yo, man, I don't know how many games you think you need, but the stuff that they brought out so far has been fantastic, especially the things that are PS5 exclusive, like actually PS5 exclusive.
For the exclusive games that I have played, I can't complain. I loved Ratchet and Clank. It was fantastic. I've loved every single game in the series, and this was just a really, really good version of that. I really liked Forbidden West. I loved Horizon Zero Dawn. I think the story is super unique and interesting, how the future's gone so far ahead. It's now reverted to the past, if you will. I really enjoyed that. A lot of people didn't like Forbidden West, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think the games that they've brought out that I've played, I have no complaints with, other than the fact that, yes, there is a lot of cross-gen here, but that was to be expected anyway. You can't expect for this new console to come out, especially in a pandemic, and then just cut off 110 million users straight away and be like, well, try and get a PS5 when we get around to making one.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't take it into stack, but at the same time, for people who did get a PS5, I have to give them credence when they say, hey, it's next gen for a reason.
Yeah, for the early adopters, I totally understand when, you've just dropped $550 on a new console and you're playing games that basically look the same as the PS4 version, you're just getting a better frame rate or a better resolution. I can understand why there would be that type of attitude towards it, but at the same time, I don't think things would have been much different even if there wasn't a pandemic, purely down to the fact that the install base of PS4 is so incrementally huge. It would have taken a long time, even with no supply issues, for those users to migrate over to the new system. A lot of people will be waiting for the holidays before they get one, so in that huge gap while you're waiting for the holidays to come around, these games still got to release. So you're not just going to abandon your whole entire install base of PS4. Maybe it would have gone a bit more smoothly and a lot quicker than what it currently has. If there wasn't the pandemic, yes. But this still would have happened regardless.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't disagree. It's just
I don't really have a problem with it right now, as far as games not being truly exclusive and using all the power of the console. Like, I don't really have an issue with it. Like, you're still pulling out games like God of War that look and feel and play fantastic. Could it have been a much different a game if it was a PS5 exclusive? Maybe. But as we all know, this generation is going to last a lot longer than the last one did. The gaps between consoles are going to get bigger. And that's not going to change. It's just because the way that hardware is working, the gaps are going to naturally get bigger. So give it 3 or 4 years, and the way that we see these IPs are going to change as well, because they're going to be fully utilizing the system. It takes years for these developers to learn what they can do with the new hardware anyway. So even if it was truly, well, let's just say God of War Ragnarok was a true PS5 exclusive, I highly doubt it would have been much different to what we've received, other than maybe some graphical prettiness. But as far as the core game is concerned, I don't think it would have been much different, because they just haven't had enough time with the hardware to push it to its limits, like The Last of Us did with the PS3.
Yeah. I mean, I think it wouldn't have been as big of an issue, because I think they do know how to use the technology, but they can't
Well, not really. I mean, you've got
because of
UE5 now, and like everything's changing.
yeah. But that's the thing. Like it had changed enough to where like or it had the lifespan of the last generation, unlike many others before it, really had a huge jump in technology between like when it was existing. And people had the capabilities. And that's one of the reasons Cyberpunk was so broken, is because they ended up having to develop for 5 different tiers of consoles when they originally created it at a fidelity for the higher consoles. So, but that's just other stuff. And, everything's not in graphics, but like I said, I understand both sides of the argument. As far as Xbox goes, Game Pass is as everyone says, the best deal in gaming. And Microsoft paid enough money for it to be. But yeah, they haven't really started dropping their exclusives yet, but 2023 is supposed to be the year. So for me, there's really no reason for you to have an Xbox yet, unless you just want to be prepared for when things come out, like Starfield or whatever whichever else they're working on.
I am totally on the fence with Starfield. I don't understand the hype to which it is at. Like, I understand the hype, but the hype that it's being hyped up to, I don't get it. Like,
I mean, it's all off of dev recognition, man.
Yeah,
that's why all of them are, because if they were fresh games coming out of nowhere, especially with the history of bugs and stuff like that, like, it wouldn't be. But it's completely the fact that their selling point is Fallout, but sci-fi. Most people go and buy Fallout. Like, Fallout has a really dense following, so that's intriguing, even to someone like me.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for it, and I'm genuinely intrigued to see how it works and how it's all going to play out, but I'm very doubtful of Starfield. I'm like, I think that as far as the main story is concerned and like the main goal and the main planets that you need to visit, I think, yeah, they'll be beautiful, and like, don't get me wrong, the game's going to be buggy as hell. It's Bethesda, so let's just clear that up for one thing. But like, the planets that are made for the story is going to look great and stuff, but this whole 1,000 planets and you can visit them all thing, like, they're just going to be all barren and boring, or it's just my concern is, does your ship need fuel? Okay, go to one of 991 planets that are not part of the main story arc and go get some minerals to make fuel with. Like, that's what those extra planets are going to be for. And I don't think they're going to be entwined into the story that much. They're just going to be fetch questy things, and they're going to be basically pointless. So what's the point in them being there in the first place? Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's stuff like that keeps me on my toes about Starfield.
See, Coinum said the jump from PS4 to PS5 was not nearly as noticeable as other gen jumps. It is if you played PS5 games. If you've played the games that actually have come, whether that be Ratchet and Clank or the Demon Souls remake or Returnal, there's a huge jump. Like, there really is. But it's hard to see in the other main title games when those games have to be made at a halfway point. But yeah, you can definitely see the difference between Dark Souls on Xbox One or on PS4 and Demon Souls on PS5. There is definitely a huge difference.
Hey, Daryl puts it perfectly for me. Just the jump in frame rate from going from stable 30 to stable 60 in games is worth buying a PS5 for on its own. That extra 30 frames is worth every penny. That's just it. That's the main reason to move to new gen is just
I'm
the frame rate alone.
I'm not a frame whore, but definitely that's one of the points.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's such a difference in smoothness. Just like, oh god, like playing Uncharted 4 with 60 frames versus the 30 frames is a completely different experience. Like being able to absorb all that beautiful scenery without that motion blur completely changes the game.
I mean, I'm not going to fight you on it. It's true. But but yeah, it's just like I don't think that every game has to be that. Like that's my only point as far as
not
game,
every
but
game,
certain
no.
things, yes.
Look,
Monster
games
Hunter
will
World
have
at
things-
60 frames per second. Monster Hunter World was like the first Monster Hunter I ever played, and it was fantastic. And then they went back to Weeb Town with the series, and it just kind of lost it for me. But Monster Hunter World 2, I've been waiting for. But that kind of leads us into what will be our final. I think what's our final topic, isn't it?
It's gonna have to be for the day, even if it isn't, because we are eating through the time.
What's your most anticipated game or gaming related thing of 2023?
Ooh. Most anticipated game
Or gaming related thing?
You're gonna hate me when I say this.
Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my most anticipated game. It has to be. It's Final Fantasy VII, and I absolutely love it, and I can't wait. When I watched the reveal trailer for it, I literally jumped 6 foot in the air. No joke. I nearly hit the roof. Like, I am all out fanboying over that shit. I absolutely love it. So Rebirth 100% is my go-to game. I don't care how much it is. I want the special edition. I want all of the shit that comes with it that I'm not going to look at. I want it all. Other than that, definitely Spider-Man 2. Like, that is way up there. Spider-Man 2, I cannot wait to get back into Insomniac Spider-Man. But yeah, that's they're my most anticipated games.
I mean, a Wolverine would be one of my go-tos. Like Spider-Man.
Do you think that's coming out in 23 though?
I don't. There's the chance.
I don't think so.
There's
Not
the chance.
in the same year as Spider-Man. No, they're going to keep that for 24. No way.
We'll see. But what I'm most interested in is this new wave of Chinese game developers.
Oh yes,
it's looking ridiculous out there right now.
Oh,
like I mean,
what is it called?
Black Myth Wukong.
Yes, that's
one.
Where
Winds Meet, Honor of Kings.
Yeah,
Crimson Desert.
That also looks good.
Like these games are looking ridiculously well crafted, and the one all of them are looking impressive to me. But Crimson Desert, which is single player, not MMORPG, unlike the MMORPG that it's kind of came from. That game looks like it has the most complex fight or battle system I've ever seen. Like the fact that it feels like it's an open world RPG, but the detail, or Crimson Desert is Korean, sorry, because that is but throw that out there. Crimson Desert, Korean, but that game also. So the Chinese and Korean dev scene. There we go. Let me fix it.
But I can't think of it. Oh,
but yeah, if you haven't seen Crimson Desert, like the way I'm going to release this podcast is I'm going to release it as a whole video, but then I'm going to chop up each individual topic that we go into, and it'll have actual footage from the things we're talking about interwoven into it. So it'll be more like its own thing on YouTube. But if you come back for that individual video later, I'll have up videos of all these games. It was just, this was kind of a last minute change we had to make, which is why for those who are just joining, whether it be alpha, beta, it just, we had to do things. The Perceiver.
No, Lost Soul aside.
Los, yes, that is also coming. I wasn't completely on board with that, but I am
Oh,
interested in seeing more.
I am I am all in on that. The combat and all the flashiness of it. Yeah, look, it's right up my alley.
Indeed. So those are my things. Of course, Insomniac, anything they do, I'm gonna be on, especially if it's that Wolverine, especially if it's that Spider-Man 2 and it actually has co-op. But yeah, as far as things that really excite me, like when Black Myth Wukong comes out, that's gonna be some insane stuff.
Yeah, that looks so good.
Like
It looks like they're doing so much with it though. Like there's so much involved in that game. Like you can shapeshift, and the way your stick can get bigger, so you can hit the bigger people. It just looks crazy.
And parry and giant monsters and the lore that it's dealing with, like it's all of it looks
so good,
amazing. So, yeah, damn, no one is talking about Stellar Blade, Sag. Yeah, I wasn't interested personally.
Let me see.
I wasn't.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll try it, but yeah, it looks okay.
And Dragon's Dogma 2. I never really got into Dragon's Dogma, but it's one of those games that like I'm glad it exists. Like there's definitely a place for it. But yeah. So unless there's something more, we can start wrapping this up for the first official episode of the Audible Brunch Podcast.
What's happening with the show then, other than YouTube? Are you gonna put it? Are we doing Spotify for this as well, like we do the Mid and Tunes podcast, or?
Yes, I'm going to be putting up the full episode of the show on the YouTube. I'm going to have the audio going through and being filtered into all podcast
okay, so that everyone can get
podcasting
it there.
programs. Good. It's just for the YouTube because like unless you have like a super following. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go through how we introduce this show again for Insane Alpha Beta so we can see the little thing we pulled. But yeah, the title and everything is going to be changing on YouTube.
Yeah.
But on YouTube with long form, unless you're Joe Rogan, it's not like it's not going to work for you. So I do want to have the full thing up there, but I want to cut these down into their individual topics, have things with our cameras where like we can be talking and we have all the stuff up.
Gameplay stuff.
Yeah. And when we do that, I won't be feeling restricted or anything because your boy has Patreon patrons.
Hey, nice.
And that I'm not like I tell y'all all the time. This isn't for money, but when YouTube decides that by me using a trailer or using a clip from a movie to do my beloved Herman's Head style of comedy. Like when they're like, we're going to take the 5 cents you would have gotten anyway. That bothers me. So as I always say at the end of my videos, for those familiar with the YouTube, I only ask for dollar donations, which basically means I get like 33 cents. And that's all. That's it. And so that's all I ask for. But I have patrons and it feels good because people really caught on to the new videos I've been making. And that feels good. That feels good. And I thank all of them. As a matter of fact, I have a little splash screen for them. But for those that weren't here for the beginning of how this started, Insane Alpha Beta, this is how the show started.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So, diving in the money like Scrooge McDuck, bro, dollars, just normal dollars. But we had to do that because of some scheduling conflicts that came up. And we wanted to make sure that people the next guests that we have coming on aren't going to be interrupted by our 100th episode. And they deserve episodes of their own, as well as the fact that some people are working on submissions for the game/short film jam, and I don't want them to feel rushed. And I know of a particular project that's being done where I definitely don't want them to rush. I want them to have the time needed to finish their submission, because if it works, if it plays out how I think it's going to play out, it's going to be a really good addition to the show. Yeah. So
it'll be really fun.
But yes, that means you get an extra week before submissions. And that's
so we have what, 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks now we have before pretty much the deadline comes into effect for the jam?
What? Where? What?
It's about 2 weeks now, right? For the deadline for the jam.
No, no, because we're not going to be here next week because of Thanksgiving.
Oh, right. Yes. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah.
December 2nd is going to be when we have on our first guest. The 9th is going to be our next guest. And if we didn't change today's show, that guest would have had to been pushed. And they've been working on a game for 2 years, and I don't feel that's right.
No.
They finally put the game out, and I want them to get on relatively soon so that they can, they can get the feedback they need and the support of the podcast. So people go and check it out for those who haven't or will not have already done so by that time. Bad Robo, this is very greedy of you. You want to become a millionaire on Poor Dreamers? No, that's why this isn't Dreams. That's why this isn't Dreams. Nor are we pulling the same numbers that we normally pull when we do a Dreams podcast. This is purely for me. But like I said, I do have Patreon patrons now. I'm appreciative of them, and I'm going to enjoy talking about movies. So,
yes,
I finally get my shot. I get my chance to talk about the thing that I love more than everything else.
Before we close then, for my homework, what is going to be the film of choice for me to watch ready for the next episode of the Audible Brunch when I'm going to be on? What movie would you like me to watch so we can talk about it? That will be our closer for the day.
What movie? You know what? I'm going to get back to you on it. Because I have to, because I have to
really think about it now.
I have to really think about it because I need it to be a movie that you're not going to turn off. Because if you turn off one of my suggestions, you're off. You're done. You're off the show. You come back to me once and be like, "Well, I couldn't what?" No, I'm not hearing it.
All
right. But I know this past week I watched this Spanish film, Piggy. It's a cool indie joint. I enjoyed it. But I watched that. I finally watched 7 years of, or not 7 years, 3,000 Years of Longing with Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton. Is it Tilda? Yeah, Tilda Swinton. That movie, wow. Like, if you haven't seen that, y'all need to go see that. Y'all need to find it, watch it. It's absolutely awesome. It's on some service right now. I can't think. Do you have a favorite animated film? No. I have honorable mentions.
Too many.
Because once you get to this point, you don't really have favorites when you've seen as much as I have. So, like, the one that I would say jumps into mind as to something I would tell people to watch if they haven't is Tekken Concrete. Or Black and White is what the manga was called. But Tekken Concrete is fantastic and completely underrated. The story behind Tekken Concrete is the special effects advisor on Total Recall, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. For part of that movie, they shot in Japan. And when he was in Japan, he found the Black and White manga, fell in love with it, And then 20 years later, basically directed the anime adaptation. It is fantastic. No, let me type this out because there you go. Tekken Concrete. And it is such a emotionally, psychologically bottomless pit of depth. I love it. Oh, God, it's so good. I mean, other than that, if you're looking for another movie, Sword of the Stranger is still one of the greatest animes to ever be made. But yeah. So with that, we say our goodbyes. Thank you to everyone who stopped by, even though this wasn't the Made in Dreams podcast. Sorry for the old switch 'em ups, but it had to happen. As always, I do what I do for the people. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back for the next episode, which we're going to have to get back to you on where it is. That intro glitch out was brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. It was an idea I had. Because this all came about last night.
Yeah, it was all very last minute.
It was all really, it was all a last minute thing. Also, oh my God, you made the show number different again. You're killing me. That's because it wasn't actually the show number.
It wasn't actually a show. So.
That's why it's blurred out. And that's also why it's called A Dream Within a Dream on that cover with the little spinning thing from Inception.
Yeah.
Because it's dreams within a dream, and my dream is film. See? It all comes together.
Oh no, I wanted dreams instead. We got a discount podcast instead.
Discount value brand podcast.
The Kaplan podcast.
But as I said, it's time to end the show. I thank you, everybody that came through. And I even have an end screen that I'm going to flash up here. Episode 80 still bugs me. Yeah, that's the Acert episode. Yeah. I did it specifically to be the heir of Acert. And I feel like I pulled it off. And the fact that it bothers you. Yeah. It's just, it's the little subtle things that I try to do to bring to the shows. But like I said, I have patrons now. So I wanted to take the time for the people who don't visit my YouTube. If you don't, you should go subscribe, because at some point one of these shows is probably going to end up only on there. But you won me over. I love it now. See, I told you, man, it'll dawn. All the little things, they'll dawn soon. But I want to take this time as our outro to give love to those patrons. We'll see you next week. Love you all.
Bye.